Welcome, everyone, to Director's Showcase. I am your host, as always, Alex Elmer, joined by me, my two co-hosts. To my right, Jacob Cunningham, joining us all the way from the land down under.
How we doing, brother?
And Holmes, a bit west or east, wherever you are, of the land down under. It is Alex Holmes.
Good to be back. How's everyone doing this morning?
And
morning for me, I guess.
Some better than others.
All right, and today we have two esteemed guests, or one of them, one conscious guest, one unconscious guest. We have the movie guys, Adam Witt and Paul Preston. Guys, how are we doing today?
Hang on, let me try that again, Adam.
Yeah.
Oh, what the?
I already love you guys.
Hey, it's not unearly here in California, but happy to get up and talk movies.
Indeed, yeah. All of us kind of, because I know we have three people on Pacific, and then I'm on Eastern, and then Jacob all the way on.
It's like 2 a.m. here, but we good.
I don't know what the abbreviation
Let's do
is,
this.
bro.
Oh, wow,
but yeah, that's.
Trying to draw sympathy, but good for you being up. And
You're
talking
damn right I am.
Yeah, the dedication we have to movies, guys. But guys, Adam, Paul, great to have you guys on. You guys, Paul, you've been on the channel once before last year. Adam, this is your first time, and we thought this would be a great idea. Director Showcase. We do this once a month. Just talk about, a director, their filmography, digest and analyze all of their movies, all the characters, all the quotes, screenplays, all of that, which we're going to do today. But guys, kind of tell everyone a bit about your channel as well. The movie guys, what you do on there. Harrison Ford, and kind of all of that.
Yeah, well, we base out of themovieguys.net. That's the website where you can find everything we're up to. Of course, branch out from there at The Movie Guys, where all the social media is. And I think at The Movie Guys is also our handle at YouTube as well. And, I mean, we've been doing this for a while, so there's tons of archives on the website of old podcasts we've done, including the movie Showcast, Countdown to 9, where my buddy Sean and I counted down to the new Star Wars movie. We're doing that again, counting down to the new Indiana Jones movie with a show called Countdown to 5, looking at the 5th indie film. But what I'm super proud of right now is something called the Ford Fiesta. Adam and I are he came up with a brilliant title where Harrison Ford's our favorite actor, and he will be touched on in today's show because of the...
He comes up.
His
comes
one
up.
scene.
Tends to come up.
Mac
Yeah.
Cannon himself.
Right, but... So the Ford Fiesta is a great combination, I think, of what we're best at, really deep research and solid movie talk, coupled with the really dumb comedy in our recaps of each Harrison Ford movie. And we're doing that one per episode, starting with Dead Heat and a Merry-Go-Round, going through Call of the Wild. So, but there's reviews, there's all our appearances on other podcasts, and I've started a movie tour. I do Ghostbusters parties with my Ecto 1 full-size 20-footer.
Yeah,
so,
definitely check out Paul's Twitter.
Yeah.
He's a movie guy. The movie guys are people who are friends who can talk movies amongst each other. Like that's just became the general term. But Paul is the movie guy.
So,
like
Adam, you're just the S. You're the S. Paul,
I'm the
Paul
S.
takes the movie guy.
Right.
Yeah,
He's
okay.
the movie guy. I'm just the S.
Yeah, but everything from red carpets to which we're doing. I think we're going to John Wick Chapter 4. No, we're not.
Amazing.
Super hot shots, and we go to a lot of these. So that one was a pretty little movie guys to go to that red carpet. But there's plenty of other adventures we've had and premieres and other things so tons of stuff going on at themovieguys.net, at the Movie Guys on social.
For sure. And if you don't mind me asking, how did you guys kind of get to know each other? Because I know you guys have been friends for a while. So when did the this great partnership begin?
This is a favorite story of mine to tell. Is that I went to a comedy show in Chicago. Paul and I both went to Chicago to study comedy at the Second City, which will come up later in the director we're talking about here. And I just went to a comedy show. Paul was in that show with his wife, and then the rest of the troupe was like friends of mine. So the only people I didn't know was Paul and Karen. And in the middle, Paul makes a Harrison Ford reference that nobody in the crowd gets, except me, who's filming. I was a videographer. And I did that classic thing of laughing extra loud to make sure that he knew I got the joke. Like, oh, ha, ha, ha. And I'm the only one. I'm like, okay. But then after the show, I was like, I just want to let you know I get that joke. And, when you're in the wild, like we're lucky enough, you guys have a streaming channel. We have the Schmodown. that's a great way to meet people who is going to be on the level. You know, you can make a Fletch reference with that group and they're all going to laugh. But when you're out in the wild, in the world, you know, when you're in high school and college and, post college and stuff like that, it ain't easy to find people that could talk about movies the way that we all talk about movies. You know, we've come together because of this, but you're going to find things like, you're going to find somebody says, be the ball out in public and you go, oh, you know, movies, so that was the sort of thing that, and then Paul and I, oh, we got to go see movies together. And that's kind of how it started in the improv scene of Chicago for Paul.
But I will say I've gone to other states outside of California and they don't talk movies all the time. It's weird.
They don't.
Weird people.
Now you guys all must have had the moment where when you were a kid, everybody loves movies. You just say, yeah, put this on. Yeah, I got to go to this. Ooh, we got to go to this movie or whatever. But then as you get into like junior high and high school, I think the rest of us are still talking about movies as much as we ever did when we were kids. We're like, everybody's interested in movies on every level throughout life, right? And then all the other kids are not interested in talking about who directed American Graffiti, and you're like, ooh, I'm starting to get alone here. This is just my thing. Then you got to find other people. You go to the video store and you're like, you talk movies? Okay, we can be friends. Sort of.
And then it's like diminishing returns. You got to go deeper and deeper and find weirder shit just to keep satisfying the bloodlust. And then, you need to find even weirder people to hang around with. Yeah.
Then you got to befriend the guy that puts up the cult section in the other video store. And then you got to find the other video store. And you're like, you have this movie? You've heard of this? And then you're in a kind of conversation. So.
No, I think I felt this. This is a quick anecdote before we get on to the rest of the show, but I met a couple weeks ago.
Give me the anecdote.
Someone who's I'll go quicker. Somebody who I met at my job. Somebody kind of this guy who was kind of a PA who I was working with, and we just started talking about movies.
Prosecuting attorney.
And as you do. As you do, I started testing his knowledge about movies, asking him, have you seen this? Have you seen this? Have you seen this? He was impressing me.
Can we be friends?
And I was like, yeah, exactly. And then eventually I was like, you know what? I'm just going to give this guy the ultimate test. I asked him if he watched. I was like, hey, you're into horror. Have you seen the 1989 masterpiece Society? Directed by, I actually don't. Oh, Brian Yuzma is the director. Society, if you don't know it, look it up. It's a complete masterpiece from
It's caused a lot of carnage in our little community here. I still haven't seen it. I'll get to it.
Basically, this is the synopsis. A California teen's worst nightmare about his parents comes true when he returns home to find a grotesque party in full swing. That is all you need to know. It's basically David Cronenberg before David Cronenberg got like extremely, extremely big. But he
people fucked up.
Does that go
and
back
it is,
that far?
And it's one of those movies where when he said, "Yeah, I've seen that," you guys have probably had that feeling before, where you light up inside, you turn into a big beam of positivity, and you're like, you are, like Adam said, can we be best friends?
It's a cool test.
It's like when you don't have a twin and you've always wanted a twin, or a Dale to your Brennan. You're like, I want this. It's right here. Guys, let's get started with the show. Adam McKay,
Hal Hartley
you guys
back
chose.
in the day. If you said Hal Hartley and people were like, "Oh, I get that," you're like, "Oh, we're friends."
Yeah. Adam McKay, you guys chose Adam McKay as your director that you guys wanted to talk about today. Now, originally you guys wanted to go Spielberg, but Spielberg, he's a bit, a bit talked about. But kind of tell us kind of why you chose Adam McKay and kind of what his filmography has kind of meant for you over the years.
Well, Paul, should we start in Chicago?
Yeah, go with what you were talking about before I jumped on here.
Yeah. So what's cool about Adam McKay, and it just didn't even occur to me, Paul and I are just trying to find something as Paul and I say, when you discuss movies a lot too, you also have to take what your actual thing you want to talk about. Sometimes it's a little overcovered. So we always say, like, when people say, what's your favorite movie? You go, Star Wars is the boring answer. Let me just say sneakers so we can talk about something or whatever. Like, what? It is? Yeah, well, and then you're off and talking. But so in this case, it's like, Steven Spielberg, but I have a feeling you've discussed him on a show called Director's Showcase.
This is our second episode, so no, but it had happened.
No
it had happened
Hilarious.
Eventually.
Oh, okay.
Well, certainly let someone else cover it. But when we got to Chicago, we trained at the Second City, which, this is the launching ground for all these great comedians. And so what was cool was Paul and I got to see Adam McKay long before he ever did any directing and follow that whole career, which is really rare. You know, like when he broke into directing, it was like, oh, I know this guy and I'm rooting for this guy. And then it turns out he's a really good director, which people don't give credit for comedy, but that's just as well directed as The Big Short. It's just Big Short had extra style and, you know, that sort of stuff. But so that was really cool. And he was a local legend at the time because he was the original member of the Upright Citizens Brigade, if you've heard of them. They had a comedy show on Comedy Central, and they continued to teach improv themselves. And they would do these street theater stunts. And there's a famous stunt. Now he's told the story. I do have to say, I recorded a pilot for a radio show in 2000, might be 2000. And what year did Anchorman come out? Because at this time in the interview, Anchorman was, what's that?
04, I believe.
04? Yeah, that's right. So probably about 2000. And he was having trouble getting Anchorman made. And at the time, obviously, there's no Will Ferrell. You're not thinking Anchorman. He's just talking about how anchormen were so funny and such celebrities when he was a kid. And so a lot of the conversation was about that and why he even wanted to make Anchorman, which was really cool, you know, in retrospect. And I couldn't find the clip before the show of that interview, but I do have it somewhere. But he had a stunt where he put up a headshot that he hated all over town and said at midnight at this time, this man's going to kill himself at this address. And then they went and did a UCB show with all the UCB people, plus Adam McKay, plus Horatio Sands at that time. And they did their regular show. And Horatio Sands would get arrested for, like, you know, stopping traffic, you know, like they would do all these like crazy stunts. So then they do the UCB show. And at the end of it, Adam McKay comes out and he goes, or no, Adam McKay doesn't come out. He wasn't in the show. He was hidden to be a stunt. Much like in Pinata Full of Bees, Paul, the what's his face was hidden. We'll get into that in a second too. Yeah. They all show up at this house. There he is at the window to commit suicide, and they bring the whole crowd out of the improv show, and then he throws a mannequin out the window. But anyway, so a lot of fun McKay stories from back then before he was directing. So that was kind of.
Was he also a member of the Family? That was another big improv troupe.
Family, that was a big improv troupe. Yeah.
Yep. So I think he became a big prodigy of Sharna Halpern, who founded the Improv Olympic with Del Close in Chicago back in the day. And so his work was always kind of supported by big names. And sure enough, by the time I got to Chicago, I saw Old Wine and New Bottles, which was like the last Second City show to sort of rest on its laurels. It was a best of show. It had Carell and Colbert and Fran Adams and Ruth Rudnick and a real good cast. But then Pinata Full of Bees came. And Pinata Full of Bees remains the first great title and the funniest live comedy show I think I've ever seen. Some people came in and just flipped the script on Second City and what could be done. Instead of just sketch, piano, sketch, piano, sketch, piano, they started infusing like Beastie Boys music and all sorts of crazy stuff. And the show had a super anarchistic. It was anarchy. And so that's due to mostly Adam McKay and director Tom Giannis spearheading the show with a cast that included Scott Adsit, Jenna Jolovitz, Scott Allman, John Glazer, Rachel Dratch, and then in and out here and there, Tina Fey, you know, the big names like Kevin Dorff, these people.
Rachel Dratch. Did you see Rachel Dratch?
I did, yeah. So these all.
Kevin Dorff.
We came in.
Star Wars is Kevin Dorff.
To Chicago at a time when, they were like, if you put it in like a high school hierarchy, they were the seniors and we were coming in as freshmen. It was fun to watch them all perform. But you could kind of get what Adam McKay's deal was right away. He leaned social political satire. He didn't always lean crazy characters, although he played a few. But some people, would come in and just give you the most outlandish character, outlandish scenario, where he did this social political satire. And so when he finally leaned into that in his filmmaking, it was not surprising. That was his vein of gold. But one thing I enjoyed of his as an improviser is, you can watch, like I like watching Colin Mockery from Whose Line Is It Anyway? Because every time he opens his mouth, he has no idea how he's going to finish that sentence. Mm-hmm. Like, governor, yes, I'm the governor, and I'm going to, and he'll and you have no idea.
Yes, yeah,
he's so good at it. McKay would always come in with an object. I don't know if you ever noticed that, Adam, but like he would come in, hello, how you doing? And he'd have something in his hand, and eventually it was either needed to move the scene forward or just really helped move the scene forward. And I was like, object work. Suddenly it's a shake or a beer or something that adds to his character, a Rubik's Cube, but who knows? But he had something in his hand, and I was always impressed with that.
And the other thing about Pinata Full of Bees, great title, is that for what was Old Wine and New Bottles, Paul? Was that their 40th review or 35th review or something?
I think 35th, yeah, something like that.
Yeah, that was like an anniversary review. For 35 years, the Second City had been musical number, blackout, first sketch, 3 minutes, blackout, second sketch, 6 minutes, black, like they had this like very, and then and then a quick 1 minute blackout, and then this, and then intermission, and then end with the song. They had this format that they had, it was all created of improv, but they funneled all of their improv into these certain basic ice cube trays of a show. Pinata Full of Bees, I don't think there were any blackouts, right, Paul? That was one of the main innovations. Each sketch flowed into the next. They had all the props on the stage. When people would cross stage, someone else would cross off, which was a long form technique.
Yeah,
so they were bringing all these things. Yeah. So it was just like he was, and which will come up later because he's going to continue to break format as a filmmaker, or even from the very beginning, do things that nobody was doing, certainly bringing improv into his directing. But it was like he was much like UCB with their street theater things or stunts. They used to do, like I said, out in the stunts. Some of them would get arrested by playing Foursquare in the middle of that 6-lane intersection in Bucktown, and would try to throw the ball to each other across. That's what got Horatio arrested. But
they go down to John Wayne Gacy's trial, right, and run around with a microphone and say, "Here we're here in the crowd. Hey, how do you think the Bulls are going to do this year?"
The other one was what's his face? It does improv for humans. Can't think of his name right now. But when they were looking for the Unabomber, and it was such a weird photo. Besser. It was such a weird photo, and they later did this on their show, but it was such a weird photo of the Unabomber. It was the hoodie and the glasses and the thing. So Besser would dress exactly like that and go mail packages in the post office. And they later put that character as just as a sketch character or whatever. But the environmental thing of it was he would dress in those glasses with that wig coming out of the thing and the mustache. It would go mail stuff at the post office. But so they were very anarchic, and I love that. And in fact, so in Pinata Full of Bees, 2 great innovations. John Glazer, they had a photo of the entire cast, but Glazer had a hat on, and you couldn't see Glazer's face. So in the middle of the show, they said, "We need a volunteer." John Glazer's been sitting in the front row for however how long. He gets up, and then they do this stunt where the audience does not know this is a member of the cast. So things like that. Or at the very end of it, they had this big thing where they were telling everyone to never rent at Blockbuster again. And they made everyone bring up their Blockbuster cards. What did they have, a fishbowl, Paul?
Yeah.
And they would cut everybody's Blockbuster cards because Blockbuster was editing the videos, and they were, it was all the political stuff. But wasn't that the ending of the show? Basically,
yeah, and then
cutting up everybody's Blockbuster cards, and they go, and don't renew it in the blackout.
And at the end of the run, they mailed those cut up cards to Blockbuster.
Did they?
Yes.
As the Unabomber?
Perhaps.
I'm going to wrap it up.
But let me just set one last piece of context before we get into the filmography, because it's from there. McKay doesn't go to film school. Adam McKay goes to Saturday Night Live.
Right.
And so he still hasn't gone to film school. The guy just knows these formats of comedy. And so the interesting thing about Saturday Night Live is Pinata Full of Bees is so good. SNL taps Tom Giannis and Adam McKay to come be writers on the show. And that's where McKay gets his relationship with Will Ferrell that lasts through his entire career. So, but it's interesting. They want to do the same thing at SNL. They go, okay, we have an idea. We want Fidel Castro to host the season premiere. And if we can't get him, we do a show about how we're trying to get Fidel Castro to host the show. We call it revolutionary comedy. So it's this whole, they get shut down, of course. It ends up being like Mariel Hemingway with guest Tom Petty, and they do the same old SNL of sketch, monologue, sketch, fake commercial, sketch, music, I guess, news. But they came in and tried to shake it up. So eventually they're there for a while, but McKay passes the torch on Tina Fey as head writer, and Tom Giannis goes and works with Michael Moore, which sits better on him as well. And then McKay can kind of do his thing finally as a director. So that's the context that we saw firsthand in Chicago, being in the midst of all these people. And it was a great little, it was impressive to see it. It was a little lesson as well. You could take a lot away from watching those folks.
And one other thing I'll add is when I got to interview Adam McKay for a pilot for a show I was doing, he was, at that time, he had maybe done 4 years on Saturday Night Live. He didn't want to be head writer. They wanted to keep him on. And he had an idea to say, I'll stay on, but only if I can shoot video shorts instead. So really the digital short thing starts with Adam McKay, even though it was branded later on with Lonely Planet, Lonely Island. But that really started with Adam McKay. So I was interviewing him at a film festival whose main person was Adam McKay, and you're like, well, it was a comedy short film festival. And so then we watched an evening of comedy shorts that he had done for Saturday Night Live. My favorite of which is the that they showed there was you could get any theme song implanted in your head. Do you know the sketch, Paul? I'll have to look this one up. So it's like you could, the soundtrack of your day. And so it starts like, here's the scenarios where you might need this implanted into your head. And so Will Ferrell's like, I think I'll go do for that. And then cut to the next day, he comes into the office to Barracuda. Oh, Barracuda. And he's rocking it. But then like a day later, he's trying to do other things and Barracuda's playing. And he's like, this is not appropriate for this particular part of my life. Only when I enter the office.
I was going to ask I know you were trying to move on, Helen, but I was just going to ask, was filmmaking always kind of the end goal for McKay, or was it something he sort of fell into and fell in love with later?
I didn't see it, but so how he personally got in that's something I probably should have researched.
Yeah, no, if you're around, but
yeah,
no,
you were there, so curious. You don't need to
because. Oh, we've already got like tons of awesome context. Yeah, it's just because, like you said, there's always been so much political stuff in his work. So he's clearly got this sort of anger and this passion for these issues. But he's just so driven in his filmmaking. So it's just really, but to come from a background of comedy is, I think the best way to go about that. Poking fun at those
Tina
issues.
Fey calls it from going from A to C. If you can do that as an improviser, you're doing well. And I remember that specifically, the weird things you remember from watching, because I did Tony and Tina's wedding, which was upstairs at Piper's Alley. And so that show would end about 10:15 and I'd go down and watch the 10:30 free improv set after each
100%.
City show. Yeah, every night.
Every
So I
night.
would just watch these people play every night and develop material for the next show, which was Paradigm Lost, I think. Anyway.
Yep.
So what's my point? What were we talking about?
The point was,
I don't even know anymore.
We were cool. And we would just walk over for our classes to just watch Tina Fey screw around on stage.
No, so I remember Rachel Dratch starting a scene like with Adam, and they're both on stage. She comes over and she goes, "Dad, the kids laugh at me because I dress funny at school." And he goes, "Well, that's because we're communist." And then they go into a whole, so like, who goes there? He does. He takes that social political step and realizes that they're just wearing plain gray, and that's why she's in trouble. Leads to this whole crazy scene that went from A to C. Didn't go to, well, look, they're mean and you're not, or whatever. Like he just took it that one step further. That's kind of his thing. And I think that he got into film the way pretty naturally, like Adam described, staying with comedy, getting an SNL, getting into the shorts, and then just expanding from there, working with great teams.
I mean, when I interviewed him, he had been trying to get Anchorman made for like a year already, and he'd given the process. It went through all these companies. He hadn't met, ultimately is going to make that with the producer. What's his face? Comedy guy. Yeah, Apatow. I don't even think he'd met Apatow yet, because you can understand a lot of people not getting the premise for Anchorman. It's highly obscure,
It's iconic now, but it must have been hard to sell.
Must have been a hard sell, right? And I love the idea. I mean, when we were talking to McKay, I was with my improv troupe, or my comedy troupe, sketch troupe, and we did a lot of like local Chicago political comedy. And it was like really like the idea of an alderman in Chicago, this old fart who's super corrupt and all this sort of stuff. We were trying to pass that off in our show. And so we're like, oh, a celebrity anchorman. That's so deliciously obscure. But, we already see people not getting what we're doing. I don't know how you pull that off, so.
Yeah. But yeah, let's move on to the show now. It's great. You
let's
guys
get
have
the show started.
Experience. You guys have firsthand experience with Adam McKay. Our last director was
We're
Billy
going live at
Wilder,
8, right?
so not a lot of firsthand experience there. But yeah, let's get started. The way this show is going to work, guys, is that we're going to go through a bunch of subcategories and kind of delve deep into McKay's filmography from there, and we're going to talk about our likes, dislikes, all of that. Quick shout out to Luke in the chat. Yes, Luke, I agree with you. We'll get to that in a sec because he has produced a lot that none of the subcategories are going to mention, but we can talk about. And then Peyton over here giving some love to the Second City. I've never been to Chicago myself, but you guys make me want to go. So
can we go back to that last name? Okay, I'm going to add more dots and dashes and things above my name. Look at this guy. He doesn't have an umlaut, but man, he's got it going. He's got the V above the S.
That's a great name.
I've never seen below the N. As far as I know, he's making that up.
I've never seen below. I've never seen below.
Shout out
11.
Luke. Shout out Luke.
Shout out Luke.
Good, man. That's good. I'm adding all those things to my name. I'm making myself because he looks important. I'm like, oh, he wrote in.
All right, let's get on now to our first subcategory. We're going to go to best character in a McKay movie. Whether this is easy or hard for some people,
they're all hard, Homer. They're all hard.
Holmes, we're going to go to you first. Who is the best character from a McKay movie?
Okay, yeah, I'm just gonna say this one is hard too. I have like 4 characters written down. Honestly, I still haven't picked one right now. I'm gonna on the spot. I'm gonna go with Ron Burgundy since we've been on the topic of Anchorman, and I just think I don't know. This is something that I observed when I was watching. I rewatched like Talladega Nights and Anchorman, and in Talladega Nights, his character is kind of stupid and like just like idiotic, and I know that's kind of the point. And Anchorman, he is too. But he's like, there's some self-awareness about him. Like he like knows some of the things he's doing is stupid. He calls it out himself. He says like, that was stupid. Or like when Paul Rudd says 60% of the time it works every time. He's like, that doesn't make sense. Like Anchorman is an idiot, but he's also like sometimes a little bit smart about some things. And that's what I just like about his character. I don't know. He's like both. He's not a complete fool. He sometimes has some smart things to say. And he's also just really funny. And Will Ferrell knocks out of the park. I mean, this is one of his earlier roles. Like it's before he's fully established himself. And this character, I feel like, will go on to define his career in many ways. So I'm going to go with Ron Burgundy. Maybe not like an uncommon pick, I'm sure. But
I'm going to hop on from there because that was also my pick. It was I was going down the list. I was going down the list of characters. I'm like, man, this is hard. And then I saw Ron Burgundy. I'm like, oh, never mind. This is actually pretty easy. I don't know. It's just within our pop culture zeitgeist. Like we mentioned, the movie was released in 2004, so 19 years ago. Yet Ron Burgundy is still relevant. You see him. You constantly see him on whether it's Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. You see him everywhere. Even on MySpace, I hear Ron Burgundy. They're still talking about him there. So I mean, he's just still such a cultural presence. He's quoted all the time, and even people who aren't totally into movies will understand what you're talking about. And even in Anchorman 2, he picks up some of that slack, although I wouldn't say he's as iconic as he is in 1. He's still great. And like Holmes said, he's not like a total buffoon. He says certain lines with such confidence, and then you think more about what he's saying. You're like, wait, that doesn't make much sense. And then the more you think about it, the funnier it gets. So I'm gonna say Ron Burgundy. Jacob?
All right, yeah, this is a tough one. I usually like to go with an out-of-the-box pick here, but Ron Burgundy would be up there for sure, but I think I have to pick a different one now. So I think I'm going to go with Brick Tamland from Anchorman. Now, maybe there's not a whole lot of character depth here, which is what I would normally be going for for an episode of this show, but just in terms of pure laugh-to-line ratio, and I know a lot of that goes to Steve Carell as well. But
laugh-to-line ratio, I love that. Laugh-to-line ratio, that's a great.
Because I rewatched it recently. My friend and I played a drinking game watching it with a few rules, and one of the rules was drink anytime Brick says something stupid. So we were basically drinking every time he opened his mouth, but and looking for justifications. Like, well, no, he was just stating a fact in a dumb way, not actually stupid. But yeah, everything that comes out of his mouth is absolute gold, and he's one of the few characters in that film that I think is actually kind of lovable. You love to watch them all, but they're all kind of awful people in their own hilarious ways. But you love Brick Tamland. You just want to give him a hug. I want to know where he gets his mysterious weapons from. I wish him all the best in his love life and in his death, where he went to Hawaii and became a bounty hunter. he puts a big smile on my face every time he's on screen.
What are you doing
Paul,
with a hand
Adam?
grenade, Brick? Yeah.
I don't know.
All right, who do you want next? Me, Adam?
Whoever wants to go first.
Well, I'll jump in because
Nice
yeah,
choice.
you can't go wrong with Ron Burgundy.
No,
I mean,
it's so unique.
I mean, someone put up Luke put up Dick Cheney, and it's a great character, but you got to go the direction. It's true, especially the way they presented
Oh
him.
yeah, you're right.
Especially
The
the
way
way
they
they
do it.
presented him. I mean, he's the most secretive politician in history, and they just had their way with his stupid ass, and I loved it. But yeah, Burgundy is the original creation. It's like, you know, a dumbass in the annals of misogynist 1970s. But it's such a good character that if you haven't followed this, I picked this up during the lockdown when COVID-19 left us all in our homes here for a while. And I just found recently that they've added new seasons that still happened over a year ago, but I'm just discovering them. The Ron Burgundy podcast is an extraordinary thing if you've ever seen it. Will Ferrell is so dialed into that character that they've been able to do like 100 episodes of this podcast where he just goes on, blathers on about nonsense in his similar goofy, uninformed way. I mean, he's hilarious. He had Dan Stevens on, if you remember him from Downton Abbey.
The Guest. He's in The Guest, right? That's Dan Stevens?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, and then he was the Beast in Beauty and the Beast, live action. But yeah, he just starts an interview with him. Sure, he's Boris Johnson because he's British. You know, he's like, and he starts talking to him about, I'm like, just the quotes are really, I'm like you. I don't, if you're like me, you don't know anything about England, except it's divided into three parts: Scotland, Wales, and Denmark, and India. and it's just insane. He's dumb. And this character has endless content. I'm glad to see it continue on in this podcast. So absolutely worth checking that out. The interviews, this commentary, my take he ends his show with, which is just dumb. And it all started back in 2004, and it seems to be because of the endless well of comedy you can get out of him. Number one character for me.
Adam?
I mean, it's really, I want to pull a sneakers here and not say Star Wars, but there is just no better connection between Will Ferrell's interpretation of this character we've never seen before, with a style we've never seen before, and a comedy that makes you laugh in a way. You know, it's almost it's weirdly straight-faced. He doesn't know he's funny. He's not trying to be funny. And then the combo of that with Adam McKay, who's a director unlike any we've ever seen before, in how he can use improv. I mean, if Adam McKay went the standard routes and ended up director on whatever that year, whatever comedy, 6 days, 7 nights, and is going to be pinned in by the network, by everybody, and not allowed to fly. The fact that was baked in from the beginning, that this improvised director and this master of improv, and that these two are going to go back and forth, to the fact that they've cut an entire second Anchorman movie from the first one, just from outtakes and a subplot. And then they cut an entire second Anchorman 2 with just alternate takes. That's just,
and
that
the fact that they hold up as
way.
movies as well. Like, I rewatched Wake Up Ron Burgundy the other week, and like, it works as a movie even though it is just cobbled together from deleted scenes.
And it wears on its sleeve that, like,
there.
You've seen this scene. It's just these are alternate takes from it, but other stuff is new. That just a subplot about I can't remember, animal activists or something.
They're like political activists who don't actually know what their cause is.
Yeah, right. And that was all really funny stuff. And that would be the funniest thing in any other comedy that year. That Wake Up Ron Burgundy would still be one of the funniest movies of that year, because it's doing stuff no other comedy's doing. So yeah, you really can't, I want to say Brian Fantana, just to be cool, but
look, Brick Tamlin was my sneakers. Like, it's hard to go past Ron Burgundy.
Brick Tamlin, obviously.
Yeah.
But we're watching, this is all, Steve Carell is from Second City. We're watching, nobody knew who Steve Carell was, but Paul and I did. Paul and I had watched Steve Carell for years at that point, where he shows up as Brick Tamlin, and there was no Office. There was no, is that his first movie?
He had the Daily Show under his belt, so we followed that too.
Right. Oh, that's right. He was on the Daily Show. I forgot about that.
Yeah, but to the big screen, I mean, that's probably his leap, Anchorman.
And he just
really
comes in
owe a
and,
lot to Adam McKay.
And same thing with Paul Rudd. Paul Rudd wasn't Paul Rudd at that time, and people knew Paul Rudd, but he's funny in this movie. And all these three, this whole cast here, I nominate the cast because just these guys all would have gotten stuck doing 90s comedy bullshit if they didn't find each other and be able to turn in this type of comedy in a movie as an ensemble. It's just perfect. And that's all from Adam McKay, being able to craft that. Because you drop these four actors into any other comedy being made in 2000, 2001, 2002, it's a very different time for comedy,
Yeah.
So this one just stuck out, had a perfect sense of humor where I was like, nobody else has a sense of humor like this. Like, yeah, the Brick killed a guy, all that stuff. And even look at this, because we're going to study this sort of improv stage style as he continues. But Brick turning to camera and say, "Hi, I'm Brick Tamland," and he's putting butter into a toaster, and I am what many doctors call retarded. It's just like that's a Second City thing. You turn to the audience, you give your monologue, and then you go into your scene, and you're like, "Whoa, nobody's doing that," but that's like total improv, long form improv style. So. Very cool.
Well,
yeah.
Let's move on now to our
Will
next
Ferrell.
topic. We're going to talk about most underrated McKay movie. He doesn't have many movies, so not many you can call underrated, but we'll try. Jacob, we'll go to you first.
I think the thing here is like, given their rating, because they're all somewhat highly rated, still underrated.
There's only one answer for me for this, and it's a movie that I don't just think is underrated. It's a movie I genuinely love, and that's Anchorman 2: The Legend Continues. I know we're staying on the Anchorman train right here, but that movie was like, I think it got okay reviews when it came out, but it was very quickly maligned by fans, and I still hear most people say, "Oh, Anchorman 2, that was terrible, just another terrible comedy sequel." But I go back to that movie, I can't even do that. I go back to that movie a lot. And I think it is one of the funniest comedies of the 2010s. And yeah, it's basically a 2 hour and 20-minute long comedy sketch. That's if you're watching the extended cut, which I always do. But
certainly in an Adam McKay movie, you watch the extended cut. Those are not bullshit they're putting in there.
No, it's shit that, would not have flown with the studios, but like it's great. But just the way they up so many of the bits from the first movie, like the fight scene, they should have sent a poet for that fight scene. I'm a sucker for a cameo. There are so many Apatow favorites in there, like Kanye West's terrible line reading of "No fair, he's got a gun from the future." Jim Carrey showing up taking eyes out, like, and just
the ghost of Stonewall Jackson,
right? Oh my god,
the ghost of Jackson, and he gives him 3 questions and runs like, of the Japanese imported car makes, what is your favorite?
Oh my!
Really?
God.
I'm the ghost of Stonewall Jackson, and that's your question? It's everything I love about McKay. His absurdity.
100%.
It's something that no one else is doing now. Like, it's big, it's weird, it's goofy, it's so dumb that it's brilliant, to quote Glass Onion. I absolutely love Anchorman 2, and sure, it's like, maybe you could argue that it's messy and rough, but it's true to its characters, it's true to the style of the original, and I think it is just as funny.
All right, I can hop on from there.
Quite underrated.
I think Anchorman 2 is underrated. There are some issues I have with kind of I didn't love the arc with Burgundy where he goes in the lighthouse and everything.
I'm blind.
But other than that, I agree with everything you said. My pick for underrated movie though is Vice, the first non-comedy, or I guess kind of comedy, that we've talked about today. I really liked Vice when it came out in 2018. I was really surprised at the kind of semi-negative reception it got. It's like a 3.3 on Letterboxd right now, although it was nominated for a whole bunch of Oscars. But I thought it was a film that lended itself to this kind of McKay's kind of trivial style. We saw a movie like Bombshell come out a year later where they kind of mimicked that style, but it didn't work to as positive an effect, mostly because, the subject matter I felt wasn't as fit for that kind of style.
There's no way Bombshell had the style of Vice though, right?
It was trying.
It was trying. Like the first scene when Charlize Theron's like talking to the camera, doing like all bunch of cuts to this and that and montage. Yeah. I love Vice. Some of the best performances we've seen from any of McKay's movies. I felt like kind of, it's also very wacky. It's deals with kind of complicated subject matter, but it makes it clear, like a certain other movie. Well, maybe not, that movie doesn't make it completely clear, but it makes it kind of that you can understand everything. Also kind of how they make Dick Cheney kind of not someone that you root for, but someone that you're really intrigued with, and someone where you're just very interested to see where his arc goes and everything. I thought that the shaky cam was really good too. Just all the filmmaking elements. I thought the editing was really good, although that might be an unpopular kind of opinion. The music's great. They also had a musical sequence with Alfred Molina that they cut out of the movie, which is very upsetting.
I didn't know about that. Oh my god.
Yeah, watch it. It's on YouTube.
Okay,
It's tremendous.
I'm realizing now that obviously I know all the stuff, the deleted scenes from Anchorman stuff, but his other movies, which of course he's going to improvise plenty. I've never looked at like the deleted scenes on some of these, so
yeah, McKay's again. This is
firing that up
to
for
McKay,
later.
right? Yeah.
McKay's gonna McKay.
And yeah, I'm with you on Vice. I like Vice a lot too.
Yeah, I like Vice also. Vice was great. But I think I would pick Don't Look Up, actually, because I really love Vice, and I think a lot of people I feel like Don't Look Up got a really bad rap, like worse than Vice.
I think they both are equally as like.
I also think a lot of people
like
went into it wanting to hate it. Like there's sort of a backlash against McKay in a lot of film circles, and I'm glad we're in a safe space for people who enjoy his recent work.
I love his stuff, and I think Don't Look Up. I do understand the criticism of that, like it's a very obvious social commentary, and it's like kind of like hitting you over the head. But I just don't care because the movie's entertaining, and I thought it was funny, and I don't know, the running gag with like the guy ripping off Jennifer Lawrence for making them pay for the vending machine when he's like a 4-star general and he's like trying to make a quick buck. I think that was just great. That was just like classic comedy right there. And then like, I thought there were some actually really good performances. Jennifer Lawrence and Leonardo DiCaprio, I thought actually gave very solid performances. I remember I wrote in my Letterboxd review, I actually wanted DiCaprio to get nominated that year. I knew he wasn't going to be, but I was like, I would have picked him. I thought he was great in the movie. I think it's unfairly maligned. I don't know. I enjoy it. I understand a lot of the criticisms, but I also think it was an entertaining 2 hours. And I mean, yeah, the message is obvious, but it is in a lot of some of his comedies, in like The Other Guys or something, which is like a straight up comedy. And of course the message is going to be like not, super deep as it is in like, Big Short or something, but I still think it's well done. And I don't know, it entertained me. So
it might be Leo's best performance because he had to convincingly be attracted to 2 women his own age.
Yeah, exactly.
Nicely done. Somebody didn't just get up this morning.
Adam, we'll go to you next.
This is really tough because there are other movies where I'm like, oh, people like it, but they don't like it enough. The Other Guys was one I stumped for many years because it just had another just different type of comedy in it, and the idea that they set up 2 action stars and kill them immediately, I'm like, oh my god, this is just there's a lot going on in The Other Guys. I could easily say, however, it did find its audience, so I'm going to hold back on that. I do have to say Don't Look Up because I don't think the average stupid person realizes how clever what's happening in this movie is. Now, I love the obvious things. Look at that cast. First of all, look at the cast he's working with there. My goodness. I think a lot of people, it is an epidemic. I know people love to be perceived as film fans, and God bless them. I get it. It's fun. It's fun. Look at our group here. We're all talking intelligently, but you know what? Dummies don't get this. Instead, they get to act like they are cineasts and have lofty opinions that fall apart immediately because they don't actually talk to guys like us, or people like us. But so Don't Look Up is one of those ones where I'm like, I don't think you get how clever this really is. The very idea of something that is imminent and is going to kill us, and that there would be another force who would have need to deny that, and turn that into a catchphrase that people put onto their t-shirts. The simplicity of 3 words, don't look up, as a don't think of a white elephant type of thing. Don't think of a white elephant. What are you thinking of? A white elephant. Don't look up. The very idea that something that you have to do, that's what the sun is, that's what the clouds are, that's how you find out weather. No, never look up again is a political message, says everything in 3 words. Those 3 words are such a clever parody of politics and conservatism and all this stuff they're making fun of there. Obviously, there's the environmental message, but making it a meteorite and then having half the population, we just saw this, half the population. We've always said, oh, people are so politically divided. What would it take to bring everyone together? Well, an alien invasion, then we'd all have a common enemy or whatever, a common thing. And it happened with the quarantine, or with the COVID. And I was like, the enemy is not us. It's a disease. We can all get together. No, for the divide. Nope. Don't look up. Don't do this. So I just think that is more clever than people will ever know. And yeah, what a cast. Yeah. So Don't Look Up. I'll say Don't Look Up. Got a weird bad rap.
Oh, I thought you were going to say the other guys, because that movie needs some love on the show.
Stump for it. It does.
Let me just say
Quiet
that
Fight.
Other Guys is one of my favorite McKay movies. I just I'd like to hope that people like it enough to not pick it as my underrated. But...
I mean, I thought that one kind of got discovered. I know I was an early adopter, but so I just assumed that was getting enough love, you know.
But I'm not going to pick it though. I'm going to stick with Don't Look Up.
The graphic and everything.
Yeah, I know, but you should, because it's a great movie.
But let's just establish that The Other Guys is a damn good movie.
I'm going to stick with Don't Look Up, Keep Your Head in the Sand as our movie for most underrated. But I'll for all the reasons you said, but I want to throw one in there that Adam's heard me bitch about many times. The fact that it came out on Netflix. It had no chance to galvanize the country as a big event movie where people could go with one of the biggest stars in the world, Leonardo DiCaprio.
It would have done fine.
Come out to that. The Revenant made money, and it couldn't be a darker thing, but it had DiCaprio up front. And so sticking this thing on streaming, and then is it out? Is it not out? Do I have to find it? How do I watch it? Right. Yeah, all that stuff. I hate it, and so it really diminishes the event feel of a movie. And so Don't Look Up missed out on its opportunity to bring
comedies back to theaters.
No shit. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, Adam and I together went to Jackass Forever last year, and it was like the first time we had gone to a group comedy event. It was just glorious, But this was an outstanding piece from McKay, and it was the last movie I thought I would cry during. But DiCaprio's plea for when he went on the news program.
Real.
to do not ignore scientists, and he was so passionate about it. There's that meta thing going on there too, because DiCaprio also was so passionate about global warming and the climate crisis, and so I just his acting was phenomenal. So I'm with you guys on that one. That he should have got an Oscar nomination. I hesitate to see. Do I know who? I think I was bringing it up here. Will Smith won, right? So
I think Leo was close, but just
he was like that 6-7 spot.
Movie enough, but
I might have taken him over Denzel in the Macbeth movie, which was okay. But anyway, solid performances throughout the board. A killer cast.
Well, that's a great year, actually.
And at its heart, a sketch movie, because at the beginning, when they have to go on all those shows, and the news is a meteorite is going to kill all of us, and to take that monumental event and have the sort of making fun of the media, the parody of the media throughout that is like really good McKay comedy also,
And the simplicity of the finale.
The ending is so emotional.
We really had it good, didn't we?
Wow. Yeah. We'll meet again.
Don't know where. Sort of criticize that in his new work for being smug, but it's like, who cares if he's smug? He's right, and we need to act on this shit more quickly than we are. So let's be on the nose.
By the way, I don't think we criticize the critics enough. They need a little criticism. Who says too smug? And what's that guy's deal that says that? Did he walk? Because you really got to walk in with smug as if your observation is smugged, you walked in going, people are too fucking smug, Let me watch this Leo movie. But I'll tell you what, before it starts, people are too damn smug.
You should find a clip of
very smug in this movie.
You should find a clip of Bill Burr on a morning show when he was pushing F is for Family. If you haven't seen it, it's great. Yeah. The two morning hosts are like, hey, Bill Burr's with us. Good to have Bill here. F is for Family's coming out on Netflix. So, Bill, hey, people are saying it's kind of a racy movie, kind of out there, it's kind of maybe a little borderline offensive. What do you say? And he's like, who? Now, people are saying, who said that? I want to know who said this. What are you talking about? Like, calling out their dumbass journalism and their grouping.
This guy named Rotten Tomatoes.
I heard things. I heard things. Like that's the deal.
And that catches fire.
Yeah, noise is noise, and who gives a damn?
Well, I just one of my best friends. Sorry to throw you under the bus, Blake, but hates his recent work, loves his comedies, and I'm like, brother, they're saying the same thing.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? Filmmakers aren't for everybody. Some people like movies. I mean, I think we're the ones that you can go to Anchorman and watch a movie. This crowd will also see the filmmaking. But when he gets to The Big Short, you go, it's actually not that far off in terms of a freewheeling style. He's just changed the cameraman and, you know, these sort of things. But yeah, I don't know. Some people are just into movies, you know, and filmmakers, it's like, it's going to be lost on you a little bit. What's going on in Vice, you know?
All right, let's move on now to our next category. Best supporting performance in a McKay movie. Holmes, we'll get started with you first.
Okay. Oh geez, this one is tough. I wrote down Jennifer Lawrence and Don't Look Up, which actually seems like
I call her lead.
Okay. Or Rob Morgan. I also said I like Rob Morgan in that movie too. I have both of them on there. But I think I mean, there's a lot of things you could pick. Like you could pick like one of the comedic performances, you know, like Steve Carell, I think is a good option for like Anchorman since he's I think every like all his facial expressions and everything. But I just was really impressed with okay, I'll say Rob Morgan. He's more the supporting. And I think he doesn't usually get as much attention. And I feel like he was really, really good in that movie, like in a dramatic role, I think, but also brought a lot of the comedy to it. He just really like sold me on the emotion in that film while also having some of the funniest parts of the film. I think is like the trick that he managed to pull off in the movie. I don't know. It's been a while since I've seen it. I only rewatched like his comedies. I didn't rewatch, you know, Vice, Big Short, and Don't Look Up for this. But from what I just remember absolutely loving Rob Morgan in that movie. I think he's one of the most underrated guys working today. I think no one really gives him his due, but in that movie, he was phenomenal. Yeah.
All right, Jacob, we'll go to you.
Totally agree that Rob Morgan is fantastic in that movie, and like you said, I guess
slept on him.
It's weighing up like what like a great comedy performance versus a great drama performance because they're so different in a lot of ways. But I wrote down a bunch, but I think I'm gonna go with Adam Scott and Step Brothers.
Let's go.
Good one.
Yeah,
good one.
I could also throw in like Derek is one of my favorite characters because like oh my god, what a villain, and also one of the not just comedy but one of the best character introductions of all time. That Sweet Child of Mine scene when they're in the car, that scene tells you everything you need to know about this guy,
and it's a
just,
cut
like,
to it, right? Boom, they're singing, right? Yeah,
bang, and just he is so smarmy and so enjoyable to watch. Like guilty as charged with the stories.
He
like,
knows the assignment.
Absolutely. Like I haven't had a carb since 2004. Like this dude, I don't know what else I could say. I remember genuinely, I think when I was a kid, because I would have been probably a kid when Step Brothers came out, I like hated Adam Scott for years because he did such a good job playing such an asshole as Derek. And now I not hate, but like I watch him and I'm like, oh, it's fucking Derek. But every time I go back to that movie, I find myself just appreciating his performance even more. And I think that also was like one of his first films, if not his first. So yeah, Adam Scott's my answer there.
Great pick. I'm gonna hop on from there. Oh gosh, this is so hard because there's so many. Adam Scott was on my list. I also have, this is not my pick, but Richard Jenkins and Mary Steenburgen from Step Brothers.
Just casting Richard Jenkins.
Quite possibly the best. You could make an argument the best movie parents in all of cinema for what they have to deal with. And their line delivery.
Well, they
they're
did divorce, but yes.
Yeah, I know. Well, I wonder why.
Best
but at the end of the movie, they tease
parents.
maybe.
Right.
They're kind of there because they're arguably the only normal characters in the entire movie, and so the juxtaposition between them and literally everybody else in the movie is just really a joy to watch. But my pick, kind of generic, but I'm going to go Steve Carell as Brick Tamlin. It's the quintessential. It's before The Office, so this was Steve Carell, and also it just shows a lot about Steve Carell that he was able to reinvent himself so quickly. The Office debuted in 2005, 2006, so this was like 1-2 years after Anchorman, so he was able to reinvent himself that quickly and do it time and time again with other movies like Foxcatcher in 2014, so 2015. So, but yeah, Brick is just such, I don't know, just the character and Steve Carell's commitment to the character is so great to watch. The line delivery is really great, and there's not much I can really add on because I think someone I don't remember. I think someone picked Jacob picked him in the best character, but yeah, Steve Carell.
It's my honorary performance award for him there. Also, I just have to shout out Steve Carell. He's my favorite performance in The Big Short too. I would have really liked to see him get an Oscar nom for that.
Yeah. All right, Paul, Adam, who wants to go?
Well, go to me because
So tough.
I'm going to say it's Steve Carell, almost as a career award. Because you mentioned The Big Short, Anchorman, Anchorman 2, and perhaps his best performances in Vice is Donald Rumsfeld. Because he actually draws emotion, which, Rumsfeld is an asshole. So, I mean, that's tough to do, but he does, because he got these braggadocio highs, and it kind of comes down to these real dismissed lows of his life. And I thought he was fantastic in that movie, but in everything McKay's done, he's certainly the MVP for Adam McKay.
Adam?
Boy, I really want to go Paul Rudd from Anchorman, but we've gone Anchorman a few here, so I'm actually going to throw this one out because it was really, I would say Paul Rudd is my actual one because I was just discovering him at that time, and there had been Wet Hot American Summer, and I'm like, who is this guy? And then he comes in Anchorman, and he's that, or maybe it was vice versa. I can't remember which one came out first, but it was just like, who is this guy? But I gotta say, Adam McKay would be one of my heroes because for some reason, for a long time, the great Michael Keaton disappeared.
Yes.
And a comedic genius like Adam McKay is like, why is Michael Keaton not working? Who's minding the store here? Puts Michael Keaton into the other guys. And I just loved seeing Michael Keaton in a movie again, being directed by Adam McKay and being that funny. And then the whole, and the way it goes in an Adam McKay movie is you get more and more random plot lines. He's now got to work a night job to put his kid through some sort of art school. And it's like, we never see the result of any of that, except for the fact that he is, now working at a Bed Bath & Beyond, which leads to one of my favorite lines. Maybe we'll go with that favorite line later.
Wait, what's the line again? Okay. We're going to see it later for best quote. Yeah.
Let's, maybe I might go ahead and hold it off for best quote because it's pretty good, but man, just seeing Michael Keaton come back and be in that cast, directed by McKay, so good. Yep, Captain Gene.
Great pick.
Captain Gene.
The quiet fight.
The quiet fight at the funeral. 2 men are dead.
Trying to put my son through college to explore his bisexuality and become a DJ.
And the whole the TLC references, he's like, no, I don't know what you're talking about. Like,
I don't want to.
That's totally classic, like improv. Somebody throws that out on stage, and then you're like, well, the next character's got to quote TLC.
Yeah, he's.
Look, I'm gonna take your wooden gun. Here's this rape whistle.
So you put some sort of linseed oil or something like that.
They had White Noise, Jack Frost. This is where Michael Keaton was, and so he needed to be lifted from that. And then, sure enough, not long after Birdman Spotlight,
right,
Spider-Man Homecoming, and he was back to his,
thanks, Adam McKay.
His greatness again.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, one of the great comic actors is being asked to do straight-to-video White Noise sequels and stuff. It's like, what's happening? Yeah.
Great answer.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on now to our next best McKay screenplay, which I know for a lot of people is going to be tough because most of his best moments are not written on the page. So
correct.
So we'll go with Adam or Paul first. Let's go with you guys first.
I won't budge. I won't budge. I won't lean away from the Academy on this one and say The Big Short, because Michael Lewis, his book, I mean, I never read it, but good Lord, it had to be crazy dense, and to cover everything that this really complicated story had to cover, and for him to make it as entertaining as to translate that book into something as entertaining as this was and employ all the elements of film. I know a lot of that's as director, but I think following that movie at all is tough to do, and to do it as entertainingly as he did.
Right.
So yeah, I'm not going to veer from what the Academy did in giving him his Oscar.
Anchorman. That's the best script. I know there's a lot of improv in that, but there's also a lot of not improv in that. And this is a script he was pitching around before people were like, oh, and then he'll improvise and make it brilliant. And that's not what the studios say when you hand him a script. You have to hand him Anchorman. You have to have that discussion about the very concept of anchormen as celebrities, a very foreign idea, and the 70s, and you're pushing a very expensive script and you're standing by your guns. You're going to have 70s cars. You're going to have 70s clothing. That movie, you scratch off the word 70s and you save $15 million. So you got to stand by your guns on that one. There was a script. He did have to shop it around town. He did plenty of improv on set. But all those characters that we're talking about are in that script from the beginning. I'm Brick Tamland. I like to eat ice cream cones. I'm pretty sure that's in the script. That's not improvised. It's after that he says, well, say 3 more things. And maybe one of those ended up in it. I don't know, but that starting point, that Anchorman, it's awesome that he wrote a movie about celebrity anchors, divorced of thinking about Will Ferrell or how it would turn out at all. Just the very idea. That's a great idea.
And let me just say that Melissa McCarthy became one of our greatest comedic actresses by working with these Paul Feig scripts, Bridesmaids and Spy. I mean, these are great scripts and some other things. Now, unfortunately, it just seems like she's lapsed into a place where it's like, we have an okay script, but she'll make it funny. The thing you're talking about.
Right.
It's like, we got, but now she'll make it great, right? She'll make Life of the Party great. No, you need the base, the great script, and that's what McKay brings. And it's a stronger way to go for any film.
By the way, has anybody seen a Richard Pryor film from the 70s? I think 100% of those movies, they're like, and then Richard just says some funny stuff.
Yeah,
He's
right.
like making up everything. And you're like, that's a lot of pressure. You should have some script.
I'm going to go Anchorman 2. Anchorman as well. Not Anchorman 2. I meant Anchorman as well. That's not what I meant. Not what I meant. The other two.
I haven't studied the script for Legend Continues, but it could be a delight.
I don't know if that one had a script.
No.
Yeah, that one might not have.
Yeah, just obviously,
Anchorman,
I have some quotes with me. They've done studies. 60% of the time it works every time on the page.
Right. Oh yeah, right.
You say Classy San Diego, of course, on the page. So obviously, there's so much in this movie. So sure, a lot of it's going to be improvised, but there's that kind of ratio as well, like of improvised versus what's on the page. And I'm very kind of, I want to go and read the script like right now so I can actually see for myself instead of inferring. The fact that everything in this movie line-wise and screenplay-wise is so iconic, also kind of, the bear stuff, that stuff is on the page. They didn't say, when they were on set, they didn't say, what, let's just get a bear, it was in the script, stuff like that.
Right.
Kind of where the plot goes, his whole relationship with we haven't mentioned her yet, but I'm gonna mess up her name, but Christina Applegate, that's her name, right? Yeah, but her entire character and her relationship with Ron, how it's kind of it's similar in Step Brothers, how they're kind of fucking with each other for a lot of the movie, and then they realize, we actually kind of like each other. So kind of all the character arcs, and yes, I'm gonna go Anchorman.
Right.
I just remember that one.
I hope that was on the page.
And of course, what she does to his teleprompter in the movie. Go fuck yourself, San Diego. Let's go to Jacob.
Okay, this is a tough one. I didn't research what's on and what's not on the page like you did, but I'm gonna align with Paul here and say The Big Short for me, because pretty much like you said, translating that source, not only that source material, but taking these like genuinely complicated narratives, not only like tying together all these characters, but explaining the financial collapse to us, especially to me, someone who is not from America, who was a child when all this happened. So I really don't have any context or background for all of this stuff. And he manages to have you watch it not only without allows you to understand it, but also makes you feel smart while watching it. And it's not just like, haha, he had Margot Robbie explain in a bathtub. Like, the film is genuinely constructed in a way that you really not only understand these issues, but become to really care. It's such an angry film. It's such a funny film. And it also has Ryan Gosling yelling the line, "I'm jacked to the tits." So it's my favorite McKay screenplay. Other Guys a close second because I think that is such a well-constructed buddy action movie that's also very much the building blocks for all of his future financial commentary.
Holmes?
Well, it seems like there's a tie here. We have 2 for Anchorman and 2 for Big Short, and it's up to me to break the tie. And I'm going to go with the Big Short. So
Well,
Big Short wins.
Ooh.
No, I think this is a great. I don't know. This is just. Well, I actually watched this not for the first time, but I took a class called Capitalism. It was just called Capitalism. I like to imagine there's an exclamation point at the end of there. But we watched it in that class.
The exciting journey.
It was an amazing class, and we watched The Big Short, and like it was probably one of the most dense classes I've had. Like it was a serious class. It wasn't like, oh, let's just put on a movie. You know, he actually put that movie on to like educate us a little bit. And I will say, I don't know if I fully understand it, the whole the collapse after watching the movie or even taking the class. I don't think I fully understand it still, but to be able to semi understand it and maybe like in the moment understand it while watching a 2-hour like comedy film is just something it's so impressive to me. And also, yeah, like everyone else said, adapting the Michael Lewis book. I read Moneyball. I didn't read The Big Short, but Michael Lewis's style is not like, you know, necessarily going to make for a great movie. But then just to see that McKay adapts it in a way that does turn it into like this really entertaining thing, and also cutting between all the different characters. There's so many different storylines going on, and like real people as well, and also balancing like just the I don't know, it's a really great balancing act, and it's just a movie that makes me keep coming back for more every time, and I feel like I learn something new every time. There's something I didn't notice, or like something finally clicks with me. I'm like, oh, that's how that works. And yeah, like Jacob said, just such an angry film too. I really like his just passion for the subject and wanting people to understand, and I don't know, I love The Big Short. So this is for the Oscars got it right this time.
I do have to say,
it won adapted screenplay.
I believe it. I reckon it won Best Picture.
I knew it was nominated. But,
Not Best Picture,
wow, I didn't know it was okay.
Adapted, like how Top Gun was adapted from Top Gun.
Yeah, the sequel thing is always crazy. Yeah.
So weird.
All right, let's move on now. Unfortunately, we gotta go worst McKay movie now.
Is there one?
Is it? Let's see. I can
that's
start
a scale.
off. I can make everyone hate me already. So worst, we haven't mentioned this movie, but I'm gonna go Talladega Nights as my worst McKay movie. Look, it's not terrible, which says a lot about him. That his worst isn't that bad. I just don't gravitate to it as much as kind of his other absurdist work. I think that it's very similar to other comedies of the era, and specifically a lot that Will Ferrell does. Like it has very similar tones to other kind of raunchy, bad 2000s, 2010s comedies like Get Hard or The Campaign. I actually don't hate those movies either. I actually find them entertaining. But I don't think they're also as memorable as some of his other movies. I think that Sacha Baron Cohen is the kind of the big standout for me. I really love him in the movie. But other than that, it's not a movie that I kind of go back to compared to his other comedies. Jacob, Holmes.
All right. Yeah. Again, I don't think he's made a bad film. I'm not going to count. If I counted it, I would say Wake Up Ron Burgundy, but I'm not going to count that. But I'm going to go with Talladega Nights as well. It's a film that like I like it, but it's one that no matter how many times I watch it, it doesn't really stick with me. It's one of those films that I've seen it probably 4 or 5 times, and I don't remember anything that happens in it. It's probably been 4 or 5 years now, but pretty much like you said, it does feel, it doesn't really stand out. It feels a little more generic. It's not. It has a lot of great moments, like that dinner scene and everything. Sacha Baron Cohen's great, but all I gotta say is it's fine, but it's kind of unmemorable for me. I don't have a lot to say about that one.
Yeah, let me just hop on right here on the bandwagon because I also said Talladega Nights. I also don't think it's a bad movie, but it's the one that just annoyed me the most. Like I think in his other films, the comedy it's not too in your face. Like I think Adam was saying this earlier that like in Ron Burgundy, for example, Ron Burgundy's not a comedian, right? He says things that are funny to the audience, but he doesn't know that they're funny. And I know that it's a similar thing in Talladega Nights, but it does feel like to me that they're trying to get you to laugh. Like they're just going really big, just really over the top and just like being complete idiots. And that's what the movie is. but it just was kind of grating to me, just kind of annoying in a way. It just kind of, it's exhausting to watch, honestly. Like sometimes it's funny and there's a lot of good lines and stuff, but when everyone's in this movie is yelling like the whole time. Like they're just so loud.
You know, a comedy's having a tough time when everybody's yelling.
Yeah, like
I've always said that about animated comedies. You're like, whoa, everybody's hyper up. Go run here, run over here. Lower Decks a little like that. I'm like, all right, guys, you can slow down a little bit. I know
exactly. Like in like Anchorman and stuff, they say that they deliver the lines like normal. You know, they're not like yelling like 60% of the like 60% of the time it works every time. You know, they're like yelling every time. Like I think it wouldn't be as funny if they did that. You know, it's just like it's like
kind of a big deal.
yeah, that wouldn't. It's not as good. I don't know. Just like
I love Lamp,
guys. You know, let's do.
I guess it works better when the characters aren't in on the joke.
Yeah,
and they're not trying to make
like I know they're not supposed. Like in the movie, they're not supposed to be in on the joke, but it feels like they are a little bit. It feels like they're going too hard, and but it still has its moments and stuff. It just was the only one that I'm like, okay, this is. And Anchorman 2, to some degree, was close for me. Like it some moments I think, but this one is the one where it's just like everything. It was just too much. It was too much. I don't know.
Paul?
Yeah.
Well, I was gonna say Step Brothers because I watched it last night for the first time.
Whoa!
To be a completist on this list of McKay films, that's the one I hadn't seen, so I watched it last night, and it's good, but it is in service of nothing. so I thought at least Talladega Nights kind of spoofs NASCAR. You know, we spoof the 70s news station.
But does it? That's my point.
What's that?
No, continue. I say, does it spoof NASCAR? That'll be my point. You continue.
Well, that's the thing, right? I thought about it, but
I don't know if it does.
I think I had to go with Jacob's thought that I don't remember this movie.
And you watched it how long ago?
Yeah, I don't remember this movie. So I think, well, Step Brothers, of course, has recency bias, and I saw it yesterday. It just might be funnier, even though it means nothing. So I'll go with Talladega Nights in the long run.
Okay. Paul, I don't know if you know, because Step Brothers has become the Breakfast Club of the generation behind us. Like it is so loaded.
I have felt great shame not having.
Yeah, you just said Caddyshack. I don't really get it. Like it'd be like somebody.
Hey, no. I was raised on Caddyshack.
Yeah, me too. Caddyshack. Ooh, yeah.
But anyway,
one of my mom's favorites.
I think Step Brothers. It's.
I mean, that is a good thing.
Watching, benefit of watching more and more, to quote it more and more and really dig it. Talladega Nights, I don't think you could get there with that. If you watch I've only watched Talladega Nights maybe 2 times, Step Brothers 2 times, and that's unfair because I've seen Anchorman 50 times, you know. But Talladega Nights, my problem with it is I'm going with Talladega Nights because it's unlike Anchorman, which drops you into this world that's foreign and strange and like celebrity anchors in the 70s. It never gets to any of that with the Talladega Nights. I never feel like, oh, I've entered a subgenre or a subworld or whatever. I'm like, oh, they're just doing Dukes of Hazzard stuff. You know, it's just, they're just dressed different and doing, and I really expected that full Anchorman sort of like into the world, and the world's weird, and you know, their values are weird. And instead, like he isn't able to drive and they have to put him through rehab. And I'm like, oh, this is just trying to find plot now. It's not enjoying being a race car movie in any way. It's a Will Ferrell movie where they're like, well, what clothes should we put on him? Ooh, I know, you know, in a way. So yeah, Talladega Nights just doesn't achieve with the others. And I know if I watch Step Brothers more, that would start to become really, you know, these movies are meant to be watched more than once, of course, but yeah.
It was Farrell's run on sports. He did Blades of Glory and Semi-Pro around the same time. He just was doing this. This is just what he was doing.
Sports, yeah.
All right, let's go now to our next category. Best lead performance in a McKay movie. We'll start with Jacob.
Oh, why do I have to go first?
Now remember, comedy isn't a performance. The Academy will tell you that every year. Comedians are not actors. So, guys, only do his serious movies because none of the rest is acting.
Oh, shit.
Okay, Jennifer Lawrence, Leonardo DiCaprio, Christian Bale.
It's our only choice. It's the only respectable ones.
Well, again,
else is a comedy, a disreputable genre, if you ask me.
Well, I was tossing up between both, but I think now I have to go with one of my comedy picks, don't I? I don't know. I hate this so much. Okay, I'm torn between two. Honorable mention is going to go to John C. Reilly in Step Brothers, who I think absolutely steals that movie as great and like one of the most iconic duos in film. And I love John C. Reilly so much, and I think he's a dude who just doesn't get enough opportunities.
Yeah.
I know he does fine, but I think he's so much more talented than a lot of the roles that he seems to be getting nowadays. And I just absolutely
He was great in
love him.
Licorice
And
Pizza, by the way.
yes, for 0.5
For
of a second. But I've always been the dough back. My best friend and I like love Step Brothers and grew up on it. And you know, I'm Dragon, he's Nighthawk. So shout outs to John C. Reilly. But I think I'm just gonna go with Will Ferrell in Anchorman upon rewatching that movie, because it's one that when I first watched it, I liked it, didn't love it, and then when I watched it again, I'm like, oh no, this movie is hilarious, and it kind of reminded me why Will Ferrell is such a beloved comedian in the first place, because it's easy to look at him now and think, what is he doing? You know, Will Ferrell movie is kind of tagged as being bad before you go see it now. But really, yeah, he was one of the best of his generation, and Anchorman is one of the most shining examples of that for all the reasons that you just said. He is so dialed in to the character. He could, you know, walk onto the street and just talk to people as Ron Burgundy and some gold would come out. Yeah, what else can be said?
Holmes?
We've lost
We
him.
can't hear you.
My bad.
We can't
Okay,
hear
I'm
you.
gonna.
Oh.
You can hear me now.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, okay.
We can hear you.
I'm
We
gonna-
can hear you.
Okay.
He's
I'm gonna
doing
go
a
to
bit.
convention.
It's getting crazy here. It's all Adam McKay up in here. He's pretending he can't talk.
He said
Mickey
Samuel L.
Evans,
Jackson and
you
the
know.
other guys, but we couldn't hear him. Anyway,
He
Mike.
did.
Lead performance, yes. Almost lead performance.
Almost a lead.
About to
Yeah,
be
you know,
lead.
For a second.
Honestly, I'm thinking about it. Will Ferrell in that movie is really good, but I'm gonna go
insanely
the
good.
conventional route, and I'm gonna do one of the dramatic movies. I'm gonna do a Christian Bale performance, but
It's a
I'm
great
not gonna pick
Which
Vice.
one?
I think I'm. Actually, does it count in The Big Short? Or is he?
There's
supporting
no
that?
lead in The Big Short, so you could pick any of them, I guess.
Okay,
He
well,
plays like
they all are.
He plays an older
I guess
version
it's
of Kid in Love
between him
Actually.
and The Big Short and him in Vice. I don't know who to pick. I mean, in Vice, I do wish that he won that Oscar. I thought he should have. Especially that was the year Rami Malek won, right? And
Yeah. It was
Oh,
also
yeah, I
the Bradley
think so.
Cooper. So everybody, it was tough. Bradley Cooper was also nominated
yeah,
that year.
yeah. I knew. I thought it was like Bradley Cooper or Christian Bale. Okay, I'll just say Christian Bale in Vice. I think that performance is really. I take away all the makeup, and like I know that thing is so Oscar baity that everyone is like, well, he transformed himself and all that kind of stuff, but I think he
But
really gets
still.
at the essence of the character, and it's still impressive all that. But that you award that in the makeup and hairstyling, not in acting. But I still think his performance is really good, and he just like captures that real, like playing a real person is obviously there's a reason why everyone always wins the Oscars for it, and for the most part, I do think that those are overblown. Like I think usually those are baity performances shouldn't win, but I don't know. There's something about Christian Bale in Vice, just like taking this. Like it's not like a beloved character, it's not like Rami Malek, he's playing like Queen, it's not he's playing
Oh, right. Exactly.
he's playing like a despicable, despised person that most people hate. It's not like a slam dunk, I would say, but he's still a complex character, and he makes you, feel bad for this guy at some points, and also hate him at others. And I think it's a really well-tuned performance, and I don't know. He just carries that movie on his. I mean, I think the movie's great, of course, but I think he also does a large part of the carrying. And so I'm gonna go Christian Bale in Vice.
He's genuinely frightening in that movie too. That final monologue into the camera, I felt like it's like, do I need to leave the theater? I feel like he's upset with me.
It makes you just feel
Jacob
bad
literally
in your
stole what I
stomach,
was. Damn it, Jacob.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, you're good. You're good. I'm gonna go with Christian Bale and Vice as well.
He would have been my dramatic pick for the record.
I agree. I would have gone Will Ferrell, but it's like because we've talked about him so much, I'll diversify it a bit with Christian Bale and Vice. I agree with everything that Holmes said. Also, I think it's very akin, especially now. I draw a lot of comparisons between this and Cate Blanchett and Tar, where literally they could go on speaking for hours on end, and your eyes would just be glued to them the entire time, just by the basis of them just the way they talk and certain beats that they have in between words and lines and all of that. I think it's just a masterful performance in that regard. And I think that kind of kind of everything he does, whether he's playing a younger version of Dick Cheney or older version, like Jacob said, that final scene is chilling. It's not just kind of staring directly into the camera and breaking the fourth wall. It's the fact that you literally feel and you're asking yourself questions because you feel like he's talking directly to you. I feel like he plays really well off of Amy Adams, who we haven't mentioned yet. But she also got an Oscar nomination for that performance. Sam Rockwell, of course, a little fun Oscar-nominated performance as well for George H.W. Bush. And I rewatched a couple scenes. It was the final scene, and then the one where he's talking to George Bush and trying to convince him, or they're talking about him potentially being vice president. And yeah, I just think it's a great performance. And every time he talks, he has that Christian Bale kind of the way he talks, he emphasis on kind of every syllable in every word. And you feel, that he's talking like an actor. And maybe that's more Nicolas Cage, not Christian Bale. But yeah, I'm going to go Christian Bale for this one.
Who's next?
Adam, let's go to you.
Movie guys.
Go ahead, Adam.
All right, Mark Wahlberg.
The king.
No, despite my monologue about how the fact that the Academy does not consider comedic performances, and how good I think we all agree the comedic performance and acting is of Will Ferrell as Ron Burgundy and creating that character, you got to go Vice. And I'm so happy that Adam McKay got to work with a huge performance like that. Like, your classic, Raging Bull went deep into the character. He got to do this to present the story of Dick Cheney, a guy who never kicked in the door and said, I'm taking over conservatism and invading Iraq. Instead, every conversation is this slow manipulation that Shakespeare would be proud of, how all of the little manipulation throughout that entire movie is pushing it. That is just so cool. What a performance that is. I mean, there's just no doubt that even giving the credit to comedic performances like Will Ferrell, which the Academy doesn't do, we still have to say Christian Bale and Vice. This is, how do you even tell the story of Dick Cheney with the way he talks and and how he was able to work his way into getting the war he wanted. So it's fascinating. It could only be done in this way. I think everything else would be a Lifetime movie we wouldn't even talk about, but this was like, and what a thing to do a biopic of. Oh my God, Dick Cheney. Who wants to see that? Get that guy out of my life, but and which Adam McKay feels the same way. I mean, he's telling the story because holy shit, fuck this guy, right?
yeah, exactly.
And also, just quick before we get to Paul as well, because we were talking about Oscars. I do feel like he would have gotten the win. But Gary Oldman was the year before for Darkest Hour, and that was also very similar in terms of the makeup and in terms of being in a biopic-y performance. So right. I feel like it was just kind of the odds and just kind of just happening to come the year after, where the Academy was like, you know what, we'll nominate someone else.
I still can't believe
give someone else the win.
Jessica Chastain won like 2 years ago for Eyes of Tammy Faye, and it was not like a weak performance, but it was just like, come on. And didn't Renee Zellweger also won? Like, it's all these. He just got so unlucky. Like 2 years after.
But Michelle Yeoh won this year. So Michelle Yeoh won this year.
Yeah.
So or Kate Blanchett could have won both.
This year was it? There was no like big Oscar baity.
Fraser.
Oh yeah,
he's great, but it is
like a real person though.
Kate Blanchett.
Yeah, not a real person.
Kate Blanchett is Beatty technically, but it was so good that.
Like
we say Beatty, but a lot of Oscar Beatty performances, despite the fact that they might be, for Oscars, are still great nonetheless. So it's hard. It's not
just
either or.
Such a big character. It's like her Daniel Plainview type, just epic, unhinged big character study. And Vice verse. I guess even being rest that year, it's such a fun study of a biopic, in that it's a lot of biopics are very much they'll take a biography person and strip them of all their flaws, whereas Vice is about a dude who is all flaws and it goes all in on them. So it's not the first movie to do that, but it does it really well.
I agree. Paul?
Yeah, I got to push back on Vice being Oscar bait. I mean, this movie is radical. It does not do anything to like.
It's an Adam McKay movie.
Yeah, it is not like cozying up to voters. It is some
It's not saying, shouldn't we not have had a Holocaust? You know, it's Dick Cheney, and who wants to watch that? And there's no way of coming out happy at the end of that or feeling any.
No one said the film's baity, just the performance.
Yeah. I don't think it's baity.
We're at a time when George W. Bush is coming off as warm and fuzzy now, sharing candy with Michelle Obama, you know, and being cute about it.
That's wrong.
Or when Trump is, you know, out there, and I think still in.
We love our
still the president when this movie came out. So, like, McKay wanted to bridge the gap between. Let's remember these guys are responsible for bloodshed, and they paved the path for the, you know, idiot that eventually occupied the White House by the time this film came out. So yeah, I don't think it was that that much of a movie that the Academy would get behind. In fact, they didn't. They only gave it, I think, best makeup, which was certainly not all of Bale's performance. Anyway,
best makeup in a non-sci-fi movie. That's what I always call that category. It's like, where's the regular guy makeup? I know you to put 100 extras in makeup. Where's the guy who's just overweight? There we go. Give him the makeup. Yeah.
Right. Like, why not best costumes for The Big Short? Because it's not a fantasy.
If the ending made us feel good about ourselves, it would have won like 5 Oscars.
But so anyway, the point is, oh God, I loved Bale. I loved DiCaprio. I already mentioned that in Don't Look Up and how he just tugged at my heart. But I gotta go Farrell because it's just an iconic thing drudged up from nowhere. I mean,
from nowhere.
Bale was at least working with something, and
True.
Dick Cheney was.
True.
This Ron Burgundy is just.
It's a performance, ain't it?
Yeah, summoned from like a witch's brew of who knows. It's just insane. So yeah, the ability to make something that is as long lasting as Ron Burgundy is have to say half about his performance. So,
all right, we're gonna move on now to
agree.
Possibly the hardest prompt, best quote in a McKay movie. Who would like to have the honor of going first?
Oh my gosh.
Okay, wait. I have a question.
Some options.
Wait, so we're not doing best score, right? We're not doing best score.
No, because these movies have no score.
We're doing best quote movie. I mean, that's a movie.
You sprung this question on me 10 minutes before we recorded, so
I'll go first.
Yeah,
because I had mine.
Certainly, you can quote one of the movies.
Yes, I can.
Okay.
This is from Step Brothers, which a lot to choose from. But this is the one. It was also hard to pick one where it was not situated like it's just I took this as if, you know, just the quote, you know, if you just heard the quote, not the context behind the quote and everything, and kind of like, for example, one of my favorite, and I was talking about this to Jacob before the show, one of my favorite moments in any McKay movies in Step Brothers, where they're building the bunk bed, they're really psyched about it, they're like, oh, you know, all these activities we can do, you know, look at all the space, and then, you know, there's some power tools, and Richard Jenkins is like, no power tools. Dale, no power. And then they're like, oh, and then Will Ferrell gets on the bottom bunker, like, oh boy, this is gonna go good. And then it's even better from there because, you know, it's perfectly timed too, where John C. Reilly goes at the top of the bunk, and before he gets on, he's like, by the way, do you like guacamole? And then he goes on the bed, and the bed falls. And it's like, you know, this is coming, right? But that line added right before, right? It's so well timed, and adding it right before. I'm not doing it justice. I'm not doing it to justice, but it's amazing.
Well,
but the one I picked was actually
you've divided the group. There's been an exit.
Holmes hates that line so much.
He hated it.
He hates guac. He's a salsa guy. He does not like guacamole. But the one I chose was also John C. Reilly in Step Brothers. It's, you and your mom are hillbillies. This is a house of learned doctors. That's the line. And again, it might seem like too plain, but it's one that the more I think about it and the way he says it in the movie, I don't know. It's you could say so many quotes, and there's probably some that I'm forgetting, but that's the one I'm going to pick for now. My mind is probably going to change in like 10 minutes.
You never know what these quotes are going to do. You know, my favorite quote from The Princess Bride: "I have no gate key." Like, give us the gate key. I have no gate key.
The more you love a movie, the
delivered.
More...
Yeah, I agree.
Delivered with such seriousness, and he clearly has the gate key, and he clearly is going to be threatened and then hand it to them. But just, I have no gate key. Like, with such seriousness. Like, you never know what quote's going to do it for you, and I see how your quote did that for you, even though it may not be the funniest or most poured over line
what
when
makes
they were
you
writing
laugh.
that script.
I think you just nailed why this question. is so hard.
It was
this
you
is
and your
impossible.
it's you and your mom are hillbillies. This is a house of learned doctors. it's I agree with Jacob's take. John C. Reilly is I would argue this is magnum opus of performances. I'm looking at this was really hard because I'm literally on a page 43 plus Step Brothers quotes, better than the Catalina wine mixer. So all right, there's so many.
Look, that's an
more.
iconic one.
Could go forever.
So, who wants to go next? I won't pressure anyone because I know it's hard.
Well, I guess piggybacking off Step Brothers has some of my favorite throwaway lines in film history. Like you were just saying, the more times you watch a movie, you'll sit like one on the last thing. One line that just buckled me is when they're doing the Prestige Worldwide pitch, and Dale's just like, "We put liquid paper on a bee and it died," just shit like that.
Real quickly, there's one I forgot that this one might take the cake. It's Oprah. Barbara Walters, your wife. You gotta fuck one, marry one, kill one. Go.
Just all the threats. I'm gonna fill a pillowcase full of bars of soap and beat the shit out of you with it. What you like that? Or I'll kill you, Leonard Nimoy. The clown has no penis.
I'm fucking miserable. I'm fucking miserable. I gotta get up at 10 o'clock this morning.
Shut your mouth. Shut your mouth.
Shut your mouth. We're here to fuck shit up. Of course, Catalina White. Rob Riggle is hilarious in that.
Yes.
Or this guy's gonna eat your dick. I've seen him do it.
He's got all the students have the guns. He's like, guns. He's got passed around the class. They have to run away.
Real quickly,
it was international waters, so they couldn't prosecute him.
This isn't a quote, but that entire scene with Will Ferrell and Mark Wahlberg and the other guys, where he's talking to him about the lion pride.
Yes. I was gonna say that.
The Lion vs. Tuna monologue, that was gonna be my pick from a non-Step Brothers movie. 100%.
That's amazing.
That conversation didn't go how you thought it was gonna go.
we're gonna use kelp as breathing apparatus.
And form a front and end up in the
stalk
air.
You.
End up in the...
One of my favorite throwaway lines from Anchorman 2 is just when Champ's like, you know what they call bats? Chicken of the cave, when he's feeding bats to people.
A whale's vagina.
There's also what's that one from
frankly,
Ben
I don't think they know
one
what it means anymore. The translation was lost.
What's the Ben Stiller line from Anchorman again when he's like, fuck, what is it? I don't know the word in Spanish.
Hold on. I'm going
Como
to post
estas?
pages.
Isn't it like "Como estas, bitches" or something like that?
All right. I think it is.
And just the line I said to you before, Homer, where he's like, he keeps saying he was going to join the family business, but you're a medical doctor. Believe me, I've told him that. He keeps saying it's all about who you know. So yeah, again, it could be anything depending on what mood I'm in. So today, my favorite line is, last week we put liquid paper on a bee and it died, but tomorrow it could be something completely different.
Paul?
I got to go back to Anchorman though, because perhaps the test of time that they've stood with me, having just seen Step Brothers, a lot of funny stuff in there. But and again, I'm not going sneakers on this. I think it's just you stay classy, San Diego, because I say that all the time. I can't deny that. I just say that all the time. Also, I'm kind of a big deal. I say all the time.
Yeah,
as well. I mean, you can't deny something like, I have many leather-bound books in my apartment of rich mahogany.
So many of those lines. My God. So many, and they're all throwaways.
Yeah. I can't drink milk without milk was a bad choice.
Milk was a bad choice.
Yes.
Trapped in a glass box of emotion. Yeah.
But the Human Torch was denied a bank loan. I mean, it just goes on and on.
Oh, the Human Torch was denied a bank loan is one of the goats.
Great Odin's Raven.
But I think,
Arsonist has oddly shaped feet.
I think you just look at Star Wars and you go, I think the line is the Force will be with you, always.
Also, with the Stay Classy San Diego, like we mentioned before, they capitalize on that with the teleprompter thing. So there's also more like that. That line comes up again in the movie, which is
God
great.
damn it! Who put that in the teleprompter?
So I think that's the you Stay Classy San Diego is the Force will be with you of Anchorman. So that's my winner. Is as million times as it's been said, that wins.
All right, Adam, take us away.
All right, we have a tie. First of all, I just want to say it's just a tiny line, but I have to give credit to it because for a movie as crazy as Anchorman is, to call out its own joke is actually rare, I believe. Well, no. It's extremely common, I think, in that movie. But after the big fight they have in the park, the one thing that just killed me was was the very next line is, well, that escalated quickly.
Yes.
Which it did, and that was the joke. And I never expected it to get called out like that. I was like, oh, that actually is on a slightly different extra level, and Brick killed a guy, and they never calling out actual murder in the comedy,
Brick, you should leave town because you're probably wanted for murder.
That's amazing. But I have that's just an honorable mention. I do have to say I love the line, and let's just give some credit to Fred Willard, who passed away. Anchorman, this is my second favorite line, and I'll give you my favorite. But it's I have no idea. He's on the phone. This is the funny thing. When you're entering, this is not in the script. This was improvised on the phone because we're like, oh, we're going to begin this scene. He's going to come in, so you just talk on the phone, and then obviously got directed. I have no idea where we would have gotten a hold of German pornography, but you and I are mature adults. We've both seen our share of pornographic materials. Oh, you never have? Well, of course you haven't. How stupid of you. Neither have I. In fact, I was just speaking in generality, right? All right, I'll stop by the school a little later, Sister Margaret. Now that's but the one that killed me was Michael Keaton. Again, I'm very much enjoying in this movie in the theater, seeing Michael Keaton be funny again. They've now brought full form the joke that he has to work at Bed Bath & Beyond to pay for his kid to being a DJ. So he starts it, and leave that up because okay, we got a big day out there, big one. We got a full moon. People are going to be amped. All right, let's see what we got on hot tips. All right, whoa, new bath mats are in. All right, one more thing. We got a serial rapist in Crown Heights. Geez, I'm sorry. That's for my other job.
Walk in pairs.
If you live in Crown Heights, walk in pairs. I love that line so much. And it does all the Michael Keaton things. He's got to do every Michael Keaton in there to get all of those laughs, So the new bath mats are in. He switches into that and he goes, one more thing, got a serial rapist in Crown Heights. Oh, sorry, that's my other job. Ignore that. Well,
that whole Keaton thing. Yeah, I love that Keaton thing.
There's just so much humor in all of that. It just killed me.
All right, we're gonna move on now to our final.
Wait,
oh shit! I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
I know
forgot
my
one.
Wi-Fi went out, but hey, it's not my fault. I'm on my phone now. Sorry, guys. I have to use my data. I don't know. The Wi-Fi just sorry about that. But anyway, I was gonna say, I like that that escalated quickly. I've used that in real life a few times. But I think my favorite is gonna be the I'm in a glass cage of emotion. I gotta say that's probably
it's a classic.
Incredible.
He's like, "Where are you?" I'm in a glass cage of emotion. It's so perfect. I don't know. I mean, we've all been there, We've all been in a glass cage of emotion, and that was just so good.
There's also the line he says. It's when he throws the burrito at Jack Black, and he doesn't he say "Oh, this is a good burrito," and then he throws it out the window at him, something like that.
It's absurd, right?
So
yeah. It's just improvise that one last line before the actual thing you're supposed to do in the shot. It's all over the place. I love it.
All right, we're going to move on now to our final category, gentlemen. Before we get there, we had best score written down, but we decided to skip that. But the one piece of score I remember from any of his movies is the theme that pops up when Mantooth is coming up to where it's down. You know the theme I'm talking about?
Right, down.
Yeah.
But the Vice score is really good. Nicholas Bertel.
I don't remember it. Oh
my god, you guys!
That was Bertel, wasn't it? Yeah.
But you also have the original song, or not the original song, the song in Step Brothers at the end.
Right.
That
I just want justice for Nicholas Bertel because and in Don't Look Up, those two movies he does a great score.
Oh yes, the score's great. And Don't Look Up. I forgot about that. But yeah, we're gonna move on now to Best Picture. The final category. We're really gonna get a good sense of what everyone has learned today. We're gonna go with Holmes first. You started us off earlier today. Let's end with you.
All right. Well, this one's easy for me. It's definitely the Big Short for me. I mean, maybe it's not the really it's it's the dramatic pick. It's this is the most serious one. I know, but I don't know. It's the one that I like the most. I think it's.
Oh,
I honestly think it is like one of. It's just as funny as the
It is
straight up
good.
comedies to me, and I also feel like I learned something when I watch it. And I don't know. I loved watching it in my capitalism class. What can I say? Um, I think the cast is just incredible, and I mean Ryan Gosling also is one of my favorite actors, so I might be a bit biased in picking that for this category. But this is the one that I just like. Yeah, every time I think I've seen it like 3 times now. Maybe that's not a lot in the grand scheme of things, but I think I have seen it more than any other movie. Although Anchorman soon to surpass it, I bought the Blu-ray of that, so that will be watched many more times.
And
But
it
yeah,
has
The Big
Harrison
Short
Ford
is
in
the
it.
one that. Yeah, that's true, Anchorman. But yeah, I just love The Big Short so much. And yeah, feels like it has the most to say, I think.
Jacob?
Yeah, The Big Short's definitely my favorite out of the last 3 movies he's done. But overall, my favorite is Step Brothers. Like, I'm wearing the damn Prestige Worldwide shirt, so of course it is. And like I said, maybe it is such a basic, like, white dude favorite movie from like the ages of 16 to 30. And yes, it's a comedy that I grew up watching, but hey, that's why I love it. It's so ingrained into my soul. It feels like a part of my personality. And it's a film that no matter how many times I go back to, I'm still laughing my ass off. I still find a new favorite line. It's like been the backbone of friendships I've had with people. It's a film I quote with my friends every single day. And I just think it's hilarious, pure and simple. And I guess something I kind of wanted to talk about in relation to McKay is that I miss his brand of comedy, that absurdism. And I feel like not enough people are really doing it that way anymore. So it's a time capsule of, look at this young man getting wistful about an earlier era of comedy. But yeah, I think they don't make him like it anymore. And I know it might be one that you had to grow up with, because I see a lot of people coming to it and now say, what is this bullshit? And maybe if I never saw it and came to
I said it's funny. It's funny. It doesn't have, it's not spoofing anything specific, so it's just kind of nonsense for nonsense sake, which is good, but also perhaps doesn't elevate it as high for me as other McKay films. Anyway, continue.
No, as a man child who loves nonsense for nonsense sake, I just think Step Brothers is the most personal to me. It's the one that makes me laugh the most. It's the one that I could like recall the most quotes from. And again, as a big John C. Reilly fan, it's just, I'm eating good with that one. I love everything about it. And that's my fave.
I need to clarify before we move forward. Best picture or favorite picture?
I'm going favorite here, absolutely. But I don't believe in separating the two.
Yeah, me too.
I actually don't either. But it's trouble. My brain just goes there. Yeah.
I am going also Step Brothers with
Hey!
I agree with everything that Jacob, so we have two for that one. Yeah, what can I say that hasn't already been said? Step Brothers, again, it's not just been ingrained in the culture, but like Jacob said, it's been ingrained in me. It's one of those movies where when I'm on cable TV, yes, I still have cable TV. This is a movie that's always on, mostly on like channels that will like censor a lot of the language and material. Like when he puts his balls on the drum set, they'll like blur out his balls or just not show the scene at all. And even when I'm watching a censored copy of Step Brothers, it is still like one of the funniest movies I've ever seen.
So I think you could argue that it's satirizing like the nuclear family.
Yeah,
if I want to attach something to it.
Yeah, that's what I was
say
going.
that.
Yeah, and the entire cast, like we mentioned, Adam Scott, Mary Steenburgen, Richard Jenkins. We mentioned Rob Riggle briefly.
Catherine Hahn is hilarious.
Catherine Hahn, yes, film. I was gonna. Yes. She's so great. Yeah, everyone in this movie is great. You have the scene where there's so many memorable scenes in the movie. Like we mentioned, some of them. There's the one where they're going to get a job interview and they're doing it together.
I can taste it on my tongue.
It's one of these movies where I don't enjoy the 2010s into the 2020s like raunchy comedic style. I just don't really like most of those movies. But this is a movie that I feel like it does what those movies try to do, but just so much better. And it also McKay's so great with working with actors and letting them do what they want to do while also just kind of integrating what the crew wants to do and what he's kind of wants to do with the movie. And so I feel like for those reasons, Step Brothers is my favorite. It's the one I've seen the most as well. And it's iconic. And Jacob has the shirt. I have the shirt with me as well. everything in this movie you can quote, endlessly with anybody, whether, it's almost a communal language between people, movies is a communal language, but Step Brothers is a language of its own as well, which makes it kind of, it's the primary reason it's on this list.
It's the new Breakfast Club for quoting. To speak from my generation, it's your Breakfast Club where you could just, every line in that is useful in some context.
I wanted to name my trivia team Prestige Worldwide, but Gold didn't co-sign it.
But 12 others already had.
Co-sign that.
Yeah.
Adam, we'll go to you.
My favorite,
and I'm sure best. Actually people said, Adam.
What's that?
I was going to say, I'm sure people said, Breakfast Club. Oh, that's like we had Blazing Saddles, and so on and so on.
Oh,
in terms of quote movies.
Oh, what is the next generation's quote?
I'm talking about the one I quoted, but
that's a great point.
I'm just saying that we did, but before us.
Oh, you're saying right.
After us, there's Step Brothers, and who knows what's next?
And who's knows
I'm not even
going
to attempt to answer that one.
Yeah, I mean, what is the new Step Brothers? Because it was interesting when I realized, the generation behind us has a champion for movie quotes, and it's Step Brothers. But I wonder what the new one is. I don't know.
Yeah, I can't think of what a beloved or new comedy is. But
I'm trying to think. I know
Jacob almost won't know for a few years.
Jacob and I share a love for Hot Fuzz, but that's like similar as Step Brothers. I think it came out around the same time.
Around the same time, yeah. Hot Fuzz is my favorite film, but yeah.
Well,
but Adam, what is your best McKay picture?
So, Anchorman is such a original type of humor for the time. I mean, we're talking. This is the year of. I was looking up. I was like, what other comedies came out? This is the year of 50 First Dates and Eurotrip and White Chicks. And you're just like, my sense of humor. Club Dread, Starsky and Hutch, which upon second watch is actually quite brilliant. But at the time, I was like, But so Anchorman comes along and it just has this extremely particular sense of humor that is absolutely aimed at me. And I am laughing much harder than everybody else in the theater. And it was a truly joyous experience. Down to, I was with a friend of mine that I went to high school with who was visiting when we saw Anchorman. When they walk through the park and they're all eating and they just throw their food down, because in the 70s, everyone littered. But nobody in the crowd I was with knew that, except for me and my friend Jim, who howled with laughter at the joke of everybody did litter in the 70s, but that's not playing to anyone. So, and it's just down to, 60% of the time it works every time. Funny line, but to follow it up with, that doesn't make sense. Now, you could say that doesn't make sense about anything that's been said in this movie, but it's called out there, Sex Panther. I mean, it's just like the particular Panda Watch. There's certain sense of humor things that I'm like, is this only playing to me? And it became a huge phenomenon, but I'm like, that is such a specific type of sense of humor that hits me in a place that, Napoleon Dynamite didn't that year, It's so Anchorman, it's just always going to be Anchorman because that just seemed like the mystic village in the mists parted. And I go, there's comedy. It was awesome. Yeah. So good stuff.
Paul?
Well, we talked about it might be much maligned in this whole time. I was like, wow, but it's probably my favorite, which is Vice.
Whoa!
And you got to go way back to the context we said about how Adam McKay slowly started working his comedy back around into the social and political comment that he loves so much. And by the time you get here, he's combined the two. Not even working with a book like Michael Lewis had for The Big Short, but just totally going balls out straight into the topic that he wanted to touch with this sort of just a melting pot of things to bring to tell this story. You got meta gags, you got like high drama, you've got outrageous situations. You're to where he's practically spoofing the biopic itself. And then Chaney gets the last word, but then that's not the last word because there's a post-credit sequence where he's called out for all his liberal claptrap, and so you can't even get mad at him for that. So the movie has every trick in the book, but all tastefully put together. Oscar-nominated editing to make it all sort of palatable, considering it's a lot. Great performances. He continues to drum up the best casts for his movies. Even starting with Anchorman. Because what a comedic cast that is, and now what a mix of like great. Sam Rockwell, Amy Adams. I mean, we've gone down the list. There's no love here for Dick Cheney, and to see him just kind of be drawn through the mill and have everything hurled at him was fun.
And there's nothing that Dick Cheney would want less than a movie about him. So I was just like watching that whole movie going, Dick Cheney fucking hates this, and I love it.
And I got to comment on a couple of things I heard. All the love for John C. Reilly, that goes back to Chicago. In Chicago, I saw John C. Reilly on stage at Steppenwolf. Gary Sinise played Stanley in Streetcar Named Desire, and he played Mitch. And John C. Reilly killed it as Mitch. He was really almost outplayed Sinise because he underplayed so well, whereas Sinise was all blowhard Stanley. It was fun to watch.
Great in the movie Chicago, John C. Reilly.
Oh, so great. Such a heartbreaker in that.
What a pull.
Yeah. Then it was fun to watch Step Brothers because you may know I have a movie locations tour here in LA where I take people out and I show them movie locations where films were shot. And you can go to South Pasadena. I saw South Pasadena there in the scene right after the job interview where they got the tuxes on walking through a park with the bike. That's South Pasadena where they have the farmers market every Thursday. So that'll be added to the tour. That's going on the tour. So I'm going to put that right on the tour. And of course,
hopefully visiting LA for the first time later this year. You'll have to take me on one.
I can take you to the old zoo. The LA Zoo is in Griffith Park, but the old zoo is decommissioned. It's no longer a zoo, but they kept a lot of it up, and it's a park now. So you can go see where they had, different displays and stuff for the animals. And that's where they shot much of the zoo sequences for Anchorman. So I can take you there if you want to check that out. And also, I think we cut the category Best Cinematography, but surprisingly, it's got to go to Talladega Nights, right? Like all the shooting of the
no, it
stuff,
doesn't.
I thought it was pretty impressive.
Big Short. The
Big
show
Short?
his thing in Big Short. Oh my god, that's what I loved about it.
Big Short was mine too.
When I went to the Big Short, I was like, oh my god, Adam McKay, the comedian, is such a cineast that he's channeling like Jean-Luc Godard or like this sort of like really that was such cool photography to have that style in that, and it really worked, and it was really smart, and it wasn't just doing it to do it. It was really working. I was blown away by that. I was like, oh my God, our Adam McKay is growing up. What am I watching? Yeah.
I guess I thought that when I watched Talladega Nights. I said, this guy's filming NASCAR like some kind of Paul Newman or James Garner old school, like NASCAR thing. Or even like Tony Scott, but there's comedy in it all. So I was impressed that he made it look so damn good and they goof on it. If he can provide the production quality and the laughs, I was impressed. So yeah.
If you're talking about the movie Grand Prix, James Garner's Grand Prix, the B unit on that was George Lucas shooting, just so you know.
Oh wow!
The things you learn in the Ford Fiesta.
Yeah, I know that was a Ford Fiesta fine.
That's also a great thing about McKay. He just believes in the material and actually, treats it seriously as a film, despite how absurd it is.
Yeah,
and
And then
Don't Look Up. That's
also real quickly, because Adam McKay, we didn't talk about some of the stuff he's produced as well. The Menu, which he did, obviously one of my favorite movies from last year, which I loved. And also you can see a bunch of kind of parallels to whether it's, like satires, like Don't Look Up. And then he also produced Fresh from last year as well, which I love. Hustlers. Also some not so great stuff like the Daddy's Home 2. I mentioned they got Hard in Campaign. I actually didn't know he produced them till now. So funny there. Holmes and Watson, The House. So some not so great stuff there, but
and he directed.
I liked The House. I liked The House.
Oh wow! All right, Jake.
That makes one of us.
I've heard all day.
You're saying produced by McKay?
Yeah. And then of course, my magnum opus, Succession, as well. Which I don't know if he's a straight up producer or executive producer, but he's definitely him and Will Ferrell are actually behind the scenes on that show, and it's my favorite show on television, and possibly my favorite show ever once we see what the ending is. And
can we all just manifest him directing Will Ferrell again one day?
Maybe Will Ferrell will show up in Succession. No,
he also directed. Shout out to. Has anyone seen Winning Time on HBO?
Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah.
I've heard it's amazing.
The show about the Lakers. It's actually really good. And he directed some of the episodes in that, I think, as well as producing it. But I really liked it. I thought that was well done.
Like we talked about The Big Short, I was going to mention like that style is like the exact same style in Succession with like the shaky cam, like the really messy like zoom ins and outs and the kind of depth of field changes. And then you mentioned Winning Time, which I guess maybe more akin to say like Vice in the in like the everything that they do with the aesthetic of the film.
Like it's like Vice,
feel of the time. But yeah, so that's gonna be it from
Apparently
us here.
they shot Winning Time. Sorry, I was just gonna say with that aesthetic change, I just learned this fun fact about Vice is that but not about Winning Time. They shot that show using they had 50 different cameras that they were like most shows or movies they have like 3 or 4 different ones that they've used. They had 50 for this because they had so many different like types of shots that they were using. Because like there's like different amounts of like film. They had 16 millimeter, 35, all these different things. It's just pretty cool. Sorry to interrupt, but you go on.
No, you're good. You're good. That's gonna do it for us here at Director Showcase. Really fun, guys. Adam, Paul, it's great to have you guys on. And I just noticed Paul changed his name with a little fancy.
Paul knows where those buttons are on the keyboard.
But Paul, Adam, where can everyone find you in your work?
As I said at top of show and went on probably far too long to keep the audience's interest, I'll keep it brief here. At The Movie Guys for all the social and themovieguys.net for everything we're up to. And let me just say, how much longer than the first show did we go?
No, the first one was long too.
Really long.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
Wilder has
it's only monthly, so I think it's fine that we go long.
Yeah. Wilder
let me cap my thoughts on McKay by saying
we're only like 4 minutes over right now, and I lost Wi-Fi last episode,
so we're already ahead.
Yeah.
Well, let me cap my thoughts by saying I think there's only 8 Adam McKay movies that he directed.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're a fan of any one, you can go through and check his entire catalog out rather easily. So get on that if you haven't. I finished it up last night. So.
Yeah.
No, you haven't until you've watched Step Brothers 5 more times to really get in the zeitgeist.
That's true. Yeah, I mean,
just put it on in the background. That's how I used to work with Blazing Saddles, Caddyshack. Yeah.
Yeah. But Jacob Holmes, anywhere people can find you as well.
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram at Jacob Watches Films. I'm always posting movie stuff. Just finished up my own awards for 2022, and you can also find my best films of 2022 list on there. And again, and on YouTube at Jacob Cunningham as well. I talk about awards a lot. I'm a bit of a nerd for that stuff. And also, again, just to wrap up, McKay, shout out The Other Guys. It's no one's favorite, but it's probably my second favorite.
So good.
Absolutely love that film.
Better.
It's like close to Step Brothers in terms of how many times I keep coming back to that one. So my last plug is watch The Other Guys if you haven't.
Holmes?
You can find me Letterboxd at AJKH34 or Instagram is Holmes_47. Sorry, there's so many numbers in there. Yeah, I mean, this was great talking about McKay. It was great to meet you guys, Adam and Paul. Thanks for coming on to the show. And had a lot of fun. You guys you're funny, like you said, you make dumb jokes, but I don't know, they're not dumb to me.
It's a compliment. Really doesn't give that out often.
Oh, thank you very much. Yeah.
If you were not funny, he would have straight up said, you guys didn't cut it for me.
You guys are shit.
But he didn't.
We had the right guys for this episode. That is
the other guys. For Jacob, for Holmes, for Adam and Paul, thank you all for joining us. Stay classy.
Oh, and one last thing.